Hello everybody, Eric here with the latest in my video series where I look at Valancourt Publishing's Paperbacks from Hell. Today we're talking about Black Ambrosia by Elizabeth Engstrom, and as I said, from Valancourt Books in their Paperbacks from Hell line. And I'm just going to read the back cover copy so that I can't be accused of anything, ever. This is what it says. Angelina is a killer. You'd never know it to look at her until you look into her eyes. Angelina doesn't kill out of hatred or fear. She kills out of love, bringing solace to her victims, guided by the seductive voice that speaks only to her. Angelina offers you eternal peace at the cost of your soul. There you go. I didn't read the blurb or the little thing about this new edition, because that stuff doesn't matter. Just that little back cover copy right there. And that's your nutshell. Excuse me, getting all choked up thinking about Angelina. So Black Ambrosia. For the too long, didn't watch folks, I gave this book 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. Wasn't sure that's where I was going, but then there are things that happen in this book that definitely pushed it into I loved it territory. And with my new ratings policy, 5 out of 5 on Goodreads means I loved it, but I also think it deserves 5 out of 5 in that it's a great book. It's incredibly well written, with interesting characters, and most of the book, how do I describe this? The book is told from Angelina's perspective. It is first person. Angelina is the one telling us her story. But at the end of each chapter, there is, for the most part, what are interview snippets. Basically, someone has gone around, it feels like anyway, someone has gone around and spoken with people who have known Angelina. And so, while we're getting this story from Angelina's perspective, we are also getting bits of the story from other people's perspective. So Angelina might describe it one way, but then this other person describes it possibly in a different way. And what I like about this is we don't know if Angelina is an unreliable narrator or if these people in these little snippets at the end of each chapter are unreliable on purpose, maybe, if they even are, or if it's just a matter of memory. This is how I remember it happening, or these are the impressions I remember having. And so you're left with this ambiguity, I think, as you read it, on who's reliable, who isn't. Is anybody? I have my opinion. You'll have yours. So I really like the way that the story is told, with that element of here's Angelina's, and of course Angelina's part, very detailed, again, as she's telling the story, and the longer parts of the chapter, whereas these little snippets at the end could be as short as one little paragraph. Some are maybe a page long, but that's versus the 3, 4, 5, 10 pages of what we've just read from Angelina's POV. We start with Angelina very young. We meet her and her home circumstance and things that lead her to going out on the road, and the things that lead her to becoming a killer who doesn't kill out of hatred or fear, but kills out of love. Again, reading off the back of the book, excuse me, So we're getting all of this story, and the horror very, very slowly builds, and it'll drop away for a while, and then builds again, and it reaches a crescendo that I absolutely love. Again, I wasn't sure how I was going to rate this. It took me a little while to get into the rhythm of the writing and into the story itself and what Elizabeth Engstrom was doing in the story. There is an introduction by Grady Hendrix. I don't always agree with his assessment of the story, but since there are quotes from people involved, I have to go with what they say. And one of the great things that I learned in the introduction, this is a book that caused Elizabeth Engstrom and her then agent to break up. A little spoiler from the introduction, and let's see if I can find it quickly. She had already had a book published. So she had sent the book to her agent, and then it says she received a letter from her agent. If this is your idea of fiction, it read, we are not suited to each other. So right off the bat, I'd read the introduction after reading the book because I was warned that some of the introductions to these have spoilers. So now I always save the introductions till after the book. But if I had read that previous to reading this, I would have been even more excited, I think. A book that broke up a relationship, even though it was a business relationship. Some of the feeling of this book gave me a bit of Del Abyss feelings. So I think if it had been published in the 90s, I think that was the heyday of Del Abyss. I'm not 100% sure. This was originally published in 88. I feel like it could have been a Del Abyss book. Some people, I think, will know what I'm talking about. Although I do think it would have been on the less bizarre end of the books that Del published. The Del Abyss line was very psychological, I think almost experimental horror, but some of it easier to read than some of the other books, and I think this would have fallen on that easier to read end. But there are definitely some bizarre psychological elements to this story, but it's very violent at times, and but interesting characters. Angelina is a fascinating character, and she meets some other fascinating characters. And I don't want to give anything at all away. It's definitely worth reading. As I said, I gave it 5 out of 5. Both I loved it, and I think it's objectively an amazing, a great book. Well written, fascinating story, shocking elements to it. A nice mix of the main narrator and other people's input, and just really, really well done. Up there, and so far I haven't screwed up the title like I did in the last one. The last book that I did in this series was The Spirit, and apparently the first time I mentioned it in my video, I called it The Tribe, which I had been doing in my head for some reason. And when I was like halfway through the video, I don't know that I said it out loud. I may have, but I know I at least thought, did I say The Tribe again? when I meant the spirit. And then regular viewer commenter, all around great guy, Michael Booker, pointed out, he's like, you called it the tribe the first time you mentioned it in the video. But Black Ambrosia, Elizabeth Engstrom, haven't screwed this one up, as far as I know. Absolutely check this out. 5 out of 5 stars. There you go. Before I get into any recommendations or questions, the next book up, it's a big honking one, it's heavy, is Nightblood by T. Chris Martindale. Love that cover. It's wild. As much as I love having these books and being able to read them, having nice copies, and these are nice, sturdy, fine copies. I kind of wish I had original copies. There's something for me that's more aesthetically pleasing in the books that were published back in the 80s. I don't know exactly what it is. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this good, sturdy version of the book. As I said, I'm very happy to have them, but I don't know. I don't know if it's the texture of the pages or the covers or what exactly it is. This is just completely a me thing. Possibly. This will be a good question for the video. How do you feel about this? But there's something about having an old 70s, 80s paperback, 90s paperback in hand that maybe it's the smell of the paper. I think it's a lot has to do with the texture and the feel of it. Possibly it's just an old person thing, a bit of nostalgia. But anyway, yes, that's all. The next book is Nightblood, whenever I get to it. So, recommendations, I'm going to say check out pretty much anything from the Dell Abyss line. Tons of great stuff. There's a couple Poppy Z. Bright books, I believe were Dell Abyss. I can see one over there. Not the Poppy Z. Bright, but a Dell Abyss book. But I can't read it from here. I think Kathy Koja had some Dell Abyss, possibly Brian Hodge. As I said, they were really weird, psychological, twisted stories. Some easier to read than others. Some more enjoyable to me than others. But this did remind me of those books a little bit. And so I'm gonna say go search out. Just find some Dell Abyss books and check those out if you like Black Ambrosia by Elizabeth Engstrom. And then the question for this video, do you care about the physical aesthetics of your books? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget. This isn't a low budget review show video. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Bluesky in the description below. And that's all I have for you this time. So until next time, read more books.